The golden retriever's paws left muddy prints across the adoption center's linoleum floor, and Chen couldn't help but smile as the dog crashed directly into her legs with enthusiastic force. "This one's Biscuit," Sarah, the shelter coordinator, said with a weary but fond expression. "He came in 3 weeks ago. Owner surrender. The paperwork said the family had to move overseas for work and couldn't take him." Emma crouched down, letting the dog lick her face with abandon. His tail wagged so hard his entire back end swayed. Despite his exuberance, she noticed something in his eyes, a confusion that tugged at her heart. He kept glancing toward the door as if waiting for someone. "He's still looking for them," Emma said softly. Sarah nodded. "He does that every day. Breaks my heart. He's a good boy, about 4 years old, fully trained, great with people and other animals. Just needs someone to help him understand he's safe now." Emma had been thinking about fostering for months. Her apartment allowed dogs. Her job as a physical therapist gave her flexible hours, and honestly, she was lonely. Not desperately so, but enough that coming home to an empty apartment every evening had started wearing on her spirit. At 26, she'd watched most of her friends pair off into relationships while she focused on building her career. Now that career was stable, but her personal life felt hollow. "I'll take him," she said, surprising herself with how quickly the decision came. "I mean, foster him." "I'd like to foster him." Sarah's face lit up. "Really? Emma, that's wonderful. Let me get the paperwork started." 2 hours later, Emma was leading Biscuit into her second-floor apartment in downtown Portland. He immediately began sniffing every corner, his tail still wagging but with less certainty. When he reached the sliding glass door that led to her small balcony, he sat down and stared out at the street below. "Hey, buddy," Emma said gently, sitting beside him on the floor. "I know this isn't your home, but I promise I'll take good care of you while we figure things out." Biscuit leaned against her, heavy and warm. She wrapped her arm around him and felt him sigh. The first few days were an adjustment. Biscuit was indeed perfectly trained, responding to commands immediately, never having accidents, not chewing on furniture. But he barely ate. He'd take a few bites of food, then return to his post by the window or door, watching and waiting. It broke Emma's heart a little more each time. She took him to the dog park near her apartment that Saturday morning. The autumn air was crisp, and Portland's famous overcast sky threatened rain but hadn't delivered yet. Biscuit walked politely beside her, not pulling on the leash, but his enthusiasm from the shelter had dimmed considerably. At the park, other dogs rushed to greet him. He was polite but disinterested, tolerating their sniffs and play bows without engaging. Emma threw a tennis ball and he watched it arc through the air without moving. "Come on, Biscuit," she encouraged. "Don't you want to play?" A chocolate lab bounded past them, retrieving the ball instead and bringing it to his owner, a tall man in running clothes who was talking on his phone near the fence. Emma couldn't hear the conversation, but his body language spoke of tension. The man ran a hand through his dark hair, ending the call with obvious frustration. She tried playing with Biscuit for another 20 minutes, but his heart wasn't in it. They walked home slowly, Emma matching his reluctant pace. When they returned to the apartment, Biscuit resumed his vigil by the window. Emma called Sarah that evening. "Is this normal? He seems so depressed." "Some dogs take longer to adjust," Sarah said carefully. "Especially ones from owner surrenders. They don't understand why they've been left behind." The family seemed really torn up about it according to the notes, but the surrender was clean. All paperwork in order, vaccination records perfect, even a donation to help with his care. Sometimes people really do face impossible situations. "I just wish I could help him understand," Emma said, watching Biscuit's silhouette in the darkening room. You are helping, just by being there. Give it time. But as the days turned into weeks, Biscuit's depression didn't lift. He ate enough to survive, accepted Emma's affection with passive tolerance, and spent hours staring out the window. Emma found herself talking to him constantly, narrating her day, reading aloud from novels, playing soft music. Anything to fill the silence and let him know he wasn't alone. She took him everywhere she could, to outdoor cafes where he could sit beside her, to the waterfront where they walked along the Willamette River, to pet supply stores where other customers cooed over him. Biscuit accepted it all with the same gentle resignation that was starting to genuinely worry her. 3 weeks into fostering, Emma's best friend Rachel came over for dinner. "He's gorgeous," Rachel said, reaching down to pet Biscuit. He accepted the attention but didn't move from his spot by the balcony door. "But you're right, he does seem sad. Have you thought about taking him to a vet? Maybe he's sick." He had a full checkup at the shelter. He's physically healthy. Emma stirred the pasta sauce with more force than necessary. "I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything. Maybe he needs time with other people. Like, maybe being around different folks would help him not fixate on whoever left him behind." Emma considered this. "That's not a bad idea. There's a coffee shop a few blocks away that allows dogs. Maybe I'll try working from there a few mornings a week. Let him experience different environments." The coffee shop, called Groundwork, was exactly the kind of place Portland was famous for. Exposed brick, local art on the walls, excellent espresso, and a relaxed atmosphere where remote workers could camp out for hours. Emma had been there dozens of times, but never with a dog. She brought Biscuit on a Tuesday morning, settling into a corner table with her laptop and a latte. Biscuit curled up under the table, resting his head on her feet. At least he seemed slightly more relaxed here, perhaps because the constant flow of people distracted him from his window watching. Emma was reviewing patient notes when Biscuit suddenly lifted his head. His ears perked forward, his entire body going alert in a way she hadn't seen since the shelter. She looked down, surprised. "What is it, buddy?" Biscuit stood, his tail beginning to wag. Not the sad, obligatory wag he gave Emma, but the full-body enthusiasm from that first day. He pulled toward the front door, whining softly. Emma turned to look but saw only the usual crowd. Students on laptops, a couple sharing a muffin, a businessman in an expensive suit ordering at the counter. The businessman had his back to her, speaking in a low voice to the barista. Biscuit's whining grew louder, more insistent. He pulled harder on the leash, something he never did. "Biscuit, sit," Emma said firmly. He ignored her completely, his eyes locked on the man at the counter. The businessman turned, holding a coffee cup, and froze. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that went wide with shock. The coffee cup slipped from his fingers, hitting the floor with a crash that made everyone in the shop turn to look. But Emma only saw what happened next in a blur. Biscuit lunged forward with a strength she couldn't contain, yanking the leash from her hand. He bounded across the shop, leaving muddy paw prints just like he had at the shelter, and launched himself at the businessman with a cry that was half bark, half sob. "Biscuit!" The man dropped to his knees, catching the dog as 70 pounds of golden retriever crashed into him. "Oh my God, Biscuit!" The dog was crying, actually crying, while licking every inch of the man's face he could reach. His tail wagged so hard Emma worried he'd hurt himself. The man wrapped his arms around the dog, burying his face in golden fur, and Emma saw his shoulders shake. The entire coffee shop had gone silent, watching the reunion. Emma stood frozen, her mind racing. This was the former owner. It had to be, but he was here in Portland. He hadn't moved overseas, so why? The man looked up, his eyes red, and met Emma's gaze across the shop. She saw guilt there, and grief, and confusion as he took in the leash still dangling from Biscuit's collar, then looked back at her. Emma crossed the distance, her heart pounding. "You're Biscuit's owner." It wasn't a question. The man's jaw tightened. He stood slowly, one hand still buried in Biscuit's fur as if he couldn't bear to let go. Up close, Emma realized he was tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of presence that came from confidence and probably money if the suit and watch were any indication. "I was," he said, his voice rough. "I mean I am, I don't." He closed his eyes. "This isn't what it looks like. It looks like you surrendered a dog who's been heartbroken for weeks and you're still in town." Emma's voice came out harder than she intended, but the memory of Biscuit's depression made her angry. "The paperwork said overseas move, work relocation. I know what it said." He scrubbed a hand across his face. "Can we talk, please? I owe you an explanation." "You owe him an explanation," Emma said, gesturing to Biscuit, who was pressed against the man's legs, still trembling with joy. "You're right." He looked around the coffee shop, where everyone was still watching with undisguised interest. But maybe not here. Emma wanted to refuse to take Biscuit and leave, to protect the dog from whatever instability this man represented. But Biscuit was happier than she'd seen him in weeks, and she realized with a sinking feeling that she'd been a placeholder all along. This dog's heart belonged to the man in front of her. "There's a park 2 blocks away," she said stiffly. "We can talk there," he nodded. "I'm Julian, by the way." Julian Torres. Emma Chen. She didn't offer her hand. "Let's go." The walk to the park was awkward. Biscuit refused to leave Julian's side, pressing against his leg with every step. Julian kept one hand on the dog's head, and Emma noticed he was blinking hard, fighting tears. At the park, they found a bench away from the playground. Emma sat at one end, Julian at the other, with Biscuit trying to climb into Julian's lap despite being far too large for it. "Talk," Emma said. Julian took a deep breath. 5 weeks ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, aggressive lymphoma. My doctor told me I needed to start treatment immediately, that it would be intense, and that I needed to focus entirely on fighting it. No distractions, no stress, just survival." Emma's anger deflated slightly, replaced by shock. "You gave up your dog because you got sick." "I gave up my dog because I thought I was dying." Julian's voice cracked. "The initial prognosis was bad. Really bad. My doctor, my family, everyone was telling me I needed to get my affairs in order, to eliminate anything that might complicate treatment or my estate if things went wrong. I live alone. I work insane hours, or I did. I couldn't imagine putting Biscuit through watching me deteriorate, through irregular care, through eventual loss. And if I died," he swallowed hard, "I have no family who could take him. My parents are gone, I'm an only child. My closest cousin is allergic to dogs. I thought the kindest thing, the responsible thing, was to surrender him while I dealt with this." "You lied on the paperwork," Emma said, but her voice was gentler now. "I couldn't write owner dying of cancer on a surrender form. It felt like signing my own death warrant. And I thought it would be easier for him to adjust if the shelter thought it was a simple relocation rather than some tragic story." Julian looked down at Biscuit, who was staring up at him with adoring eyes. "I've regretted it every single day. Every single hour. Coming home to an empty apartment, going through treatment without him, it's been hell. But I thought I was doing the right thing for him." "Treatment," Emma said, focusing on the present tense. "You're still sick." "I'm responding well. Surprisingly well. The oncologist told me yesterday that the latest scans show significant improvement. I still have months of treatment ahead, but the prognosis has changed from terminal to extremely hopeful." He managed a weak smile. I came to this coffee shop because it was on my way to the treatment center. I've been going 3 times a week. I never imagined that you'd run into your dog." Emma looked at Biscuit, who had finally settled with his head on Julian's lap, eyes closed in contentment. "He's been depressed since I got him, barely eating. Just waiting by the window or door for someone to come back. I've tried everything. I'm so sorry." Julian's hand moved in slow, rhythmic strokes over Biscuit's head. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that, and I'm sorry I put him through it. I thought I was protecting him from pain, but I just caused a different kind." They sat in silence for a moment. Emma watched Julian with Biscuit and saw genuine love there, the kind that couldn't be faked. She also noticed, now that she was really looking, the slight gauntness to Julian's face, the way his expensive suit hung a bit loose on his frame, the shadow of fatigue under his eyes that probably wasn't just from crying. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Julian's expression turned anguished. "I don't know. Legally, I surrendered him. I signed away my rights, and practically, I'm still not in a position to care for him the way he deserves. I'm exhausted all the time from treatment. Some days I can barely get out of bed. I'm not working right now, trying to focus on healing. Taking him back would be selfish. But leaving him heartbroken might be worse," Emma said. She couldn't believe she was saying this, but watching Biscuit's peace in Julian's presence made it impossible to ignore the truth. "He needs you." "I need him too," Julian admitted, his voice breaking. "God, I've missed him so much, but I can't ask you to just hand him back. You've been caring for him, dealing with his depression, trying to help him, and I don't even know if I can properly care for him right now." An idea formed in Emma's mind. It was probably crazy. It definitely crossed professional boundaries in terms of fostering. But looking at Biscuit, finally content, and at Julian, clearly struggling with both illness and heartbreak, she couldn't ignore it. "What if we shared custody?" she said. Julian looked up sharply. "What? Temporary shared custody? You're still going through treatment. You said you have bad days. What if Biscuit stayed with me on those days and with you when you're feeling stronger? That way he gets time with you, but you don't have to worry about his care when you're not up to it. And gradually, as you get better, he transitions back to you full time." "You would do that?" Julian stared at her as if she'd offered him something impossible. "You don't even know me." "No, but I know Biscuit, and he loves you. I've spent 3 weeks trying to make him happy, and in 5 minutes with you, he's more himself than I've ever seen him." Emma found herself warming to the idea. "Besides, I'm a physical therapist. I understand rehabilitation and recovery. Cancer treatment is brutal. You need support, and apparently so does your dog." "That's incredibly generous." Julian's eyes were wet again. "But I can't impose on you like that. You've already done so much. It's not imposing if I'm offering." Emma surprised herself with how much she meant it. "Look, I know this is unconventional, but conventional gave us a depressed dog and a grieving owner. Maybe unconventional is worth trying." Julian looked down at Biscuit, then back at Emma. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure that Biscuit deserves to be happy. And I think this is the best way to make that happen." She pulled out her phone. "Give me your number. We can work out a schedule, figure out logistics, see how it goes." They exchanged numbers, and Emma noticed Julian's hands were shaking slightly as he typed. Whether from emotion or physical weakness, she wasn't sure. "I have treatment tomorrow," Julian said. "It usually wipes me out for about 36 hours. But Thursday, if you're willing, could I see him? Maybe take him for the day. Thursday works. Where do you live?" "Pearl District." "About 10 minutes from here." He rattled off an address that Emma recognized as one of the expensive high-rise buildings overlooking the river. "I'm in the West End. We can meet somewhere in between, or I can bring him to you." "I'll come to you," Julian said quickly. "It's the least I can do." They exchanged a few more details before Julian, with obvious reluctance, said goodbye to Biscuit. The dog whined when Julian stood, trying to follow him. "It's okay, buddy," Julian said, his voice thick. "I'll see you Thursday, I promise. No more disappearing." He looked at Emma and she saw gratitude and something else in his expression. Relief, maybe, or hope. "Thank you," he said. "Truly. This means more than I can express." After he left, Emma walked Biscuit home. The dog kept looking back over his shoulder, but his tail was wagging, and when they got to the apartment, he ate his entire dinner for the first time since she'd fostered him. That night, Emma lay in bed with Biscuit sprawled beside her and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. Shared custody with a stranger, a millionaire from the looks of it, who was battling cancer. It was messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea. But when she remembered the look on Julian's face when Biscuit had recognized him, and the way Biscuit had finally seemed whole again, she knew she'd made the right choice. Her phone buzzed with a text. Julian's number. "Thank you again for today. I still can't believe I ran into you both. It feels like a miracle. Sleep well." Emma typed back, "He's already happier. Ate a full meal. See you Thursday." She didn't expect a response, but her phone buzzed again almost immediately. "That's the best news I've heard in weeks. Good night, Emma." She fell asleep with a smile on her face and a dog snoring beside her. Thursday morning arrived with rain, typical for Portland in October. Emma took Biscuit for a quick walk, then spent extra time brushing his coat until it gleamed. She told herself it was for Biscuit's sake, not because she was nervous about seeing Julian again. Julian arrived exactly on time, looking better than he had on Tuesday. He still had that gaunt edge, but his eyes were brighter, and he smiled when Emma opened the door. "Hey," he said, then immediately dropped to his knees as Biscuit barreled into him. "Hey, buddy, I missed you." Emma watched them for a moment before clearing her throat. "Come in. You look better." "I feel better. Yesterday was rough, but I rallied faster than usual." Julian stood, following Emma into the small living room. Biscuit plastered himself to Julian's side. "This is a great place. Thanks, it's small, but it works for me." Emma gestured to the couch. "Want some coffee before you go, or are you supposed to avoid caffeine? Coffee's fine in moderation." "I'd love some if you're offering." As Emma moved to the kitchen, Julian settled on the couch with Biscuit trying to merge with him. She could hear Julian talking softly to the dog, words she couldn't quite make out, but that sounded loving and tender. She returned with 2 mugs, handing one to Julian. He accepted it gratefully, wrapping his hands around the warmth. "So how does this work?" Julian asked. "Do you want me to bring him back tonight, tomorrow? What are you comfortable with? Why don't you keep him through the weekend?" "See how you manage. If you need me to take him back sooner, just text. No judgment." Emma sipped her coffee. "I want this to work for both of you. You're being unbelievably kind about this." Julian met her eyes, and Emma noticed for the first time that his were a striking dark brown, almost black. "Most people would have told me to get lost, that I made my choice and had to live with it. Most people haven't seen how depressed Biscuit's been. This isn't about judging your choices. It's about helping both of you heal." They talked for another 20 minutes, covering practical details like Biscuit's feeding schedule, his favorite walking routes, and his quirk of needing his water bowl filled to the exact same level every time. Julian knew all of this already, of course, but Emma found herself wanting to fill the silence to learn more about this man who'd given up something he clearly loved. "Can I ask what you do for work?" Emma said. "You mentioned working insane hours." Julian hesitated. "I run a company. Torah's Development. We do commercial real estate, mostly mixed-use buildings and urban renewal projects. I started it 6 years ago, and it's grown faster than I ever anticipated. Which means I was working 70, 80-hour weeks up until the diagnosis. Emma tried not to react to the company name. She'd heard of Tora's development. They were behind several of Portland's most prominent new buildings, including the Arts Center downtown and the renovated waterfront complex everyone loved. Julian wasn't just wealthy. He was very wealthy. "That's impressive," she said carefully. "Must be hard to step back from something you built." "It was necessary. My COO has taken over day-to-day operations. I'm trying to trust the process, let other people handle things, but it's difficult. I'm used to controlling everything." He smiled ruefully. "Probably part of why I thought I could control the situation with Biscuit. I see now how wrong I was. You were trying to make an impossible decision in an impossible situation. I won't say it was the right call, but I understand why you made it." Emma set down her mug. "For what it's worth, recognizing it was wrong and trying to fix it says a lot. I'm not sure I deserve credit for fixing a problem I created." Julian stood, and Biscuit immediately jumped up beside him. "But I'm grateful for the chance. I'll text you updates, let you know how he's doing." "Please, and Julian, take care of yourself too. Biscuit needs you healthy." Something shifted in Julian's expression, a softness that hadn't been there before. "I will, promise." Emma walked them to the door, feeling oddly bereft as she watched them leave together. The apartment seemed too quiet without Biscuit's presence, and she found herself checking her phone repeatedly for updates from Julian. The first text came an hour later. A photo of Biscuit sprawled across what looked like a very expensive leather couch, toy in mouth, pure joy on his face. He hasn't forgotten where everything is, currently destroying his favorite duck toy. Emma smiled, typing back. "He never touched toys at my place. Good to see him playing again." Over the weekend, more photos came. Biscuit sleeping on a huge dog bed by floor-to-ceiling windows. Biscuit with his head out the car window, ears flying back. Biscuit at a different park, actually chasing a ball. Each photo made Emma happy for the dog and strangely wistful for herself. She'd known Biscuit was a foster, that the goal was always to find him a permanent home. But she'd gotten attached despite her best efforts. Watching him thrive with Julian was bittersweet. Sunday evening, Julian texted, "Would you want to meet us for a walk tomorrow? Biscuit keeps looking for you. I think he's confused about where you went." Emma's heart squeezed. "Sure." Where and when? They met at Waterfront Park at 10 Monday morning. Biscuit went wild when he saw Emma, bouncing between her and Julian as if trying to bring his two favorite people together. "He's been like this all morning," Julian said, laughing as Biscuit nearly tripped him in his enthusiasm. "I think he wants both of us around. Greedy dog," Emma said fondly, scratching behind Biscuit's ears. She glanced at Julian, noting the dark circles under his eyes. "Rough night. Is it that obvious?" Julian grimaced. "I felt okay all weekend, then got slammed last night. Couldn't sleep, felt nauseous, the usual post-treatment fun. But I didn't want to cancel on you. Julian, if you're not feeling well, we can reschedule. You need rest." "I need fresh air and something to focus on besides feeling lousy." He started walking, and Emma fell into step beside him. Biscuit trotted between them, his leash held by Julian. "Besides, you were right. He was looking for you. I think the shared arrangement is actually good for him. He gets both of us." They walked along the river, conversation flowing more easily than Emma expected. Julian asked about her work, and she found herself telling him about her physical therapy practice, the satisfaction of helping people recover from injuries, the challenge of dealing with insurance companies. "It sounds rewarding," Julian said. "Do you work at a hospital, private clinic?" "We specialize in sports injuries and post-surgical rehabilitation. I love it, but sometimes I think about opening my own practice. The clinic owner is great, but I have ideas for programs we could implement, especially for underserved communities." Cost is the barrier, though. Starting a practice requires capital I don't have. You should do it, Julian said with surprising intensity. If you have the vision and the skills, don't let money hold you back. There are ways to fund new businesses if you're willing to work for it. Says the millionaire developer, Emma teased, then immediately worried she'd overstepped. But Julian just laughed. Fair point. But I started with nothing. My parents were immigrants, worked factory jobs, died young from stress and poor health care. I put myself through business school on scholarships and loans. The first 10 years were brutal, so I know it's not easy, but I also know it's possible if you want it badly enough. Emma looked at him with new respect. I didn't know that. The articles about Tora's development make you sound like you came from money. I don't correct them. People in real estate take you more seriously if they think you're old money rather than a kid who grew up in a one-bedroom apartment with holes in the walls. He shrugged. But between us, everything I have, I built from scratch, which makes stepping away now really difficult. That company is my legacy. It doesn't have to be your only legacy, Emma said quietly. You're also the guy who loved his dog enough to make a heartbreaking choice. And now you're fighting to survive and to fix your mistakes. That matters more than buildings. Julian stopped walking, turning to face her. The morning light caught his face, highlighting the sharp planes and shadows of illness, but also the strength beneath. How are you real? He asked softly. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. I'm just saying what I see. What you see is better than what I've thought about myself in weeks. Julian held her gaze, and Emma felt something shift between them, a recognition that this had become more than just an arrangement about a dog. Biscuit barked, breaking the moment, and they both laughed. Someone's impatient, Julian said, starting to walk again. Where should we go? They spent 2 hours walking and talking, stopping for coffee at a food cart, sitting on a bench while Biscuit socialized with passing dogs. By the time they parted ways, Emma realized she was disappointed to say goodbye. Same time next week, Julian asked as they prepared to leave. Or sooner if you want. I'm free most evenings. Emma said it casually, but she saw Julian's pleased expression. How about Wednesday? There's a dog-friendly restaurant near my place. We could grab dinner. That sounds great. As Emma walked home alone, she admitted to herself that this was becoming complicated. She was attracted to Julian. The way he'd looked at her this morning, the easy conversation, the shared love for Biscuit, all of it combined to create something she hadn't expected. But Julian was sick. He was dealing with cancer treatment and rebuilding his life. The last thing he needed was romantic complications. And Emma had no idea if he felt the same pull she did, or if he was just grateful for her help with Biscuit. She needed to be careful. Keep boundaries. Focus on the arrangement, not on the way her heart beat faster when Julian smiled. Wednesday came too quickly and not fast enough. Emma changed outfits 3 times before settling on jeans and a soft blue sweater. Casual but put together. She told herself it wasn't a date even though every instinct screamed that it felt like one. The restaurant was indeed dog-friendly, with a large patio and water bowls stationed around the space. Julian was already there when Emma arrived, and Biscuit's excited greeting made several nearby diners smile. He's been watching for you for 10 minutes, Julian said, standing to greet her. He looked good, Emma noticed. The gauntness was still there, but color had returned to his face, and he moved with more energy than before. I'm only 5 minutes late, Emma protested, sitting across from him at the table. Biscuit immediately positioned himself between them, head on Emma's lap. He has an internal Emma clock, apparently. Julian's smile was warm. I'm glad you came. They ordered food and fell into easy conversation. Julian talked about his treatment, how the latest round had been easier than previous ones, how his doctor was pleased with his progress. Emma shared stories from work, including a patient who'd insisted on trying to run a marathon 2 weeks post-ACL surgery. "You literally have to stop people from doing too much," Julian asked, incredulous. "All the time. Some people think they are superhuman. Others think physical therapy is a magic wand that instantly fixes everything." Emma accepted a bite of Julian's pasta that he offered on his fork without thinking, then froze when she realized the intimacy of the gesture. Julian seemed to realize it too, his eyes meeting hers. Neither of them acknowledged it verbally, but the air between them shifted. "Emma," Julian said after a moment, "can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Why are you single? You're beautiful, kind, smart, funny. I can't imagine you're lacking for options." Emma nearly choked on her wine. "That's direct. Sorry, treatment has killed my filter along with my white blood cells." But Julian didn't look sorry. He looked genuinely curious. "I've been focused on my career," Emma said honestly. "I dated in college and a bit after, but nothing serious. Most guys my age want someone more carefree, less driven, and I'm not good at casual. When I'm all in, which scares people off." "That wouldn't scare everyone off," Julian said quietly. Emma's pulse quickened. "What about you?" "I'm assuming there's no one waiting at home or they would have taken Biscuit." "There was someone, 3 years ago. She wanted different things, mainly a boyfriend who was around more than I was. She was right to leave. I was married to my work." Julian scratched Biscuit's head absently. "After that, I dated occasionally, but nothing stuck. Then I got sick and dating seemed pointless. Who wants to sign up for this? Someone who sees beyond the illness to the person underneath," Emma said firmly. Julian's expression turned intent. "Is that what you see?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications. Emma could deflect, "Keep this safe and platonic," or she could be honest. "Yes," she said simply. "That's what I see." Julian reached across the table, his hand covering hers. His palm was warm, his grip gentle but sure. "I think I'm falling for you, Emma Chen. Which is probably terrible timing and completely unfair to you, but I can't seem to help it. You walked into my life at my lowest point and gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. And not just Biscuit. Hope." Emma turned her hand over, lacing her fingers with his. "I think I'm falling for you too, which is crazy because we barely know each other and you're dealing with so much and this whole situation is unconventional at best." "Unconventional seems to suit us," Julian said, smiling. "What do you think? Want to try this, see where it goes? What if you get sicker? What if treatment gets harder?" Emma had to ask, had to know he'd thought this through. "Then you'll know the worst of me right from the start. And if you still want me after seeing me at my weakest, I'll know it's real." Julian squeezed her hand. "I won't lie, I'm scared. Of the cancer, of getting attached and then not making it, of putting you through pain. But I'm more scared of missing this chance. Missing you." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm scared too, but I think you're worth it." Julian stood, coming around the table, pulling Emma up with him. Biscuit scrambled out of the way as Julian cupped Emma's face in his hands. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, "please?" The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. Emma felt Julian's hands shake slightly against her face, felt her own heart racing. When they pulled apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "Worth the fear," he whispered. "Definitely worth it," Emma agreed. Biscuit barked his approval, making them both laugh. Over the next few weeks, they settled into a rhythm. Biscuit stayed with Julian most of the time, but Emma visited frequently, and when Julian had treatment, she'd take Biscuit overnight. It meant they saw each other almost daily, their relationship deepening with each interaction. Emma learned Julian's treatment schedule, learned to read his energy levels, learned when to push him to eat and when to just sit quietly beside him. She met his medical team when she accompanied him to an appointment, and his oncologist pulled her aside afterward. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," Dr. Patel said. "His mental state has improved dramatically in the past month. That matters more than people realize in recovery." Emma also saw the harder days. Days when Julian could barely get out of bed, when nausea kept him from eating, when frustration at his body's weakness made him irritable. She brought him ginger tea and sat with him, reading aloud or just being present. Biscuit seemed to sense these days too, staying close to Julian, offering silent comfort. "I hate that you see me like this," Julian said one particularly bad evening after he'd spent most of the day in bed. Emma brushed damp hair back from his forehead. "I hate that you're suffering. But I don't hate seeing the real you, all of you. Even the vomiting and whining part, even that. Though you don't whine nearly as much as you think you do." She kissed his temple. "You're allowed to struggle, Julian. You're fighting for your life. Give yourself some grace." "How did I get so lucky?" Julian asked, pulling her down beside him on the bed. "I think Biscuit orchestrated this whole thing," Emma said, making him laugh. They hadn't been physically intimate beyond kissing, both aware that Julian's health made that complicated. But they were intimate in other ways. In the vulnerability Julian showed her, in the way Emma trusted him with her dreams and fears, in the quiet moments of simply being together. Emma met Julian's business partner, Carmen, who stopped by the apartment one Saturday to discuss company matters. Carmen took one look at Emma and smiled knowingly. "So you're the miracle worker," Carmen said after Julian made introductions. "Julian's been a different person since you came into his life." "I think that's the treatment working," Emma said modestly. "The treatment helps him survive." "You help him want to survive." Carmen squeezed Emma's hand. "Thank you for that." One evening in early November, as they walked along the waterfront with Biscuit, Julian stopped suddenly. "What's wrong?" Emma asked, immediately worried. "Nothing's wrong. I just realized I'm happy." Julian looked almost surprised by his own words. "For the first time since the diagnosis, I'm genuinely happy. I didn't think that was possible right now." Emma wrapped her arms around his waist, holding him close. "You deserve happiness, even in the middle of hard things. So do you." "I hope I'm giving you that." Julian pulled back to look at her. "I know this isn't easy, dating someone who's sick, dealing with all my limitations." "Are you happy, Emma?" "Very," she said truthfully. "You're not a burden, Julian. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years." The kiss he gave her then was deeper, more passionate than before. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Julian's eyes were dark with desire. "Come home with me tonight," he said. "Really home, stay. Are you sure? I don't want to push if you're not ready." "I've been ready since our first dinner. I was just scared of not being enough, of this body failing me in yet another way." Julian cupped her face. "But I don't want to let fear control my life anymore. I want you if you want me." "I want you," Emma confirmed. "So much." That night marked a new chapter. They were careful, mindful of Julian's energy and limitations, but the connection between them transcended physical constraints. Afterward, lying tangled together with Biscuit snoring at the foot of the bed, Emma felt a completeness she'd never experienced before. "I love you," Julian whispered into the darkness. "I probably shouldn't say it this soon, but I do. I love you, Emma." Emma's heart soared. "I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes." "We'll be scared together," Julian said, kissing her shoulder. "And brave together. Deal, deal." December brought both challenges and celebrations. Julian's treatment intensified as they entered what Dr. Patel called the critical phase, and there were days when Emma genuinely feared they'd lose him. He ended up hospitalized for 4 days with complications, and Emma practically lived at the hospital, leaving only to care for Biscuit and shower. "You should go home, get real rest," Julian said weakly from the hospital bed. "I am home," Emma said firmly. Wherever you are, that's home. Julian's parents might be gone, but Emma learned he had a network of friends and colleagues who cared deeply. His office sent food and flowers. Carmen visited daily. Even the shelter coordinator, Sarah, came by when she heard Julian was sick, bringing a care package and a photo album of Biscuit's time at the shelter. I'm glad it worked out, Sarah said, smiling at Emma and Julian together. We don't usually see happy endings like this. The happy ending felt tenuous, though, especially when Julian spiked a dangerous fever and had to be moved to intensive care. Emma held his hand through it all, whispering encouragements, reminding him of everything he had to fight for. You promised Biscuit you'd come home, she told him as nurses bustled around, adjusting IVs and monitors. He's waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. Don't give up, Julian. Please. Julian squeezed her hand weakly. Not giving up, never giving up on you, he pulled through. On the fourth day, his fever broke, his vitals stabilized, and Dr. Patel declared him well enough to go home with careful monitoring. You're a fighter, Mr. Torres, Dr. Patel said, and you have excellent motivation. She smiled at Emma, who was helping Julian dress to leave. Strong support systems make all the difference. At home, Biscuit's reunion with Julian was tearful and joyous. The dog seemed to understand Julian needed gentle handling, staying close but not jumping or pulling. Emma stayed too, essentially moving into Julian's apartment for the next 2 weeks as he recovered. Christmas approached, and Julian insisted on celebrating despite his weakness. I want to give you something, he said on Christmas Eve, propped up on the couch with Biscuit beside him and Emma curled under his arm. I know we haven't been together long and this might be too much, but I want you to have this. He handed her a small box, not ring-sized but close. Emma opened it to find a delicate necklace with a small golden dog charm and an intertwined E&J pendant. It represents us, Julian said. How a dog brought us together. How we're connected now, intertwined, inseparable. At least, I hope we are. We are, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. Help me put it on. As Julian fastened the necklace, Emma felt the weight of it settle against her heart. She turned to kiss him, tasting salt from her own tears. I have something for you too, she said, reaching for a wrapped package under the small tree they'd decorated together. It's not jewelry, but I hope you like it. Julian unwrapped it to find a leather-bound journal. For when you're ready, Emma explained. To write about this experience or your dreams or anything you want. I know you're a builder, someone who creates things. I thought maybe you'd want to create something from all of this. Julian looked at the journal, running his hand over the smooth leather, then set it aside to pull Emma close. Thank you for this, for everything, for not running when things got hard, for loving me through the worst. The worst is behind us, Emma said firmly. I believe that. You're going to beat this. She was right. January brought the news they'd been desperately hoping for. After a comprehensive scan and blood work, Dr. Patel called them into her office with a smile. You're in remission, she said. Complete remission. We'll continue monitoring, of course, and you'll need regular checkups for years. But as of right now, there's no detectable cancer in your body. Julian broke down, sobbing in a way Emma had never seen. Relief, joy, disbelief, all of it poured out in a torrent of emotion. Emma held him, crying herself, while Dr. Patel tactfully left the room to give them privacy. We did it, Julian kept saying. We actually did it. You did it, Emma corrected. You fought so hard. We did it, Julian insisted. There's no me without you anymore, Emma. Don't you understand? You're part of me now. That night they celebrated with a quiet dinner at home, just the two of them and Biscuit. Julian was still weak, still recovering, but the shadow that had hung over them for months was finally lifting. I want to do something, Julian said over dessert. Something big. I've been lying in bed and in hospital rooms for months, thinking about life and priorities and what matters. I want to start a foundation for cancer patients who can't afford treatment or who don't have support systems. I want to help people like me who might be facing this alone. That's beautiful, Emma said. I'll help however I can. I was hoping you'd say that. Because I also want to fund healthcare initiatives, including physical therapy programs for underserved communities. Specifically, I want to fund your clinic. Emma nearly dropped her fork. What? You said you had ideas for programs but lacked capital. Let me be your capital. Partner with the foundation or start your own practice under our umbrella. Whatever you want. Let's build something meaningful together. Julian, that's too much. I can't let you just give me money to start a business. It's not giving, it's investing. I believe in you, Emma. I believe in your skills and your vision. And selfishly, I want to be part of building something with you. Not just a relationship, but a legacy. Something that outlasts us and helps people. Emma looked at this man who'd come into her life through chance and a rescue dog, who'd shown her strength and vulnerability in equal measure, who was offering her not just love but partnership in every sense of the word. Okay, she said. Let's build something together. They spent the next few months bringing their visions to life. Emma worked with architects and medical consultants to design a state-of-the-art physical therapy clinic focused on accessibility and affordability. Julian, slowly regaining his strength, threw himself into establishing the foundation, using his business acumen and connections to create something that would genuinely help people. And through it all, their relationship deepened. Emma officially moved into Julian's apartment in February, bringing her belongings and making the space theirs. Biscuit, who'd been the catalyst for everything, settled into his role as the world's happiest dog, finally having both his favorite people under one roof. He played us, Julian joked one evening, watching Biscuit sprawl across both their laps as they reviewed blueprints. He engineered this whole thing. Smart dog, Emma agreed, kissing Julian's cheek. We should give him a raise. Spring brought new beginnings. The clinic, named New Horizons Physical Therapy, opened in April to overwhelming community response. Emma hired a diverse staff, implemented sliding-scale payment options, and partnered with local hospitals and community centers. Julian attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, still thinner than he'd been but glowing with health and pride. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered as Emma gave her opening speech. "Look what you built." "Look what we built," Emma corrected, squeezing his hand. The foundation, called Second Chances after both Julian's remission and Biscuit's rescue, launched the same month. It funded cancer treatment for patients without adequate insurance, provided support services for families, and yes, funded healthcare initiatives including physical therapy programs. "We're making a difference," Julian said, reviewing the first month's impact reports. "Real, tangible difference in people's lives." "How does it feel?" Emma asked. "Better than any business deal I ever closed. This matters in a way nothing else did before." That evening, Julian suggested a walk. They headed to Waterfront Park, the same place where they'd first walked together months ago. The spring air was warm, cherry blossoms were blooming, and Biscuit trotted happily between them. "I want to show you something," Julian said, leading her to a specific bench. "This is where I sat the day before I surrendered Biscuit. I came here trying to convince myself I was doing the right thing. I was so lost, Emma. So convinced that I was dying and that I needed to push away everything I loved to protect it from the pain of losing me." "But you didn't die," Emma said softly. "No, and instead of losing everything, I gained so much more than I ever had before." Julian stopped walking, turning to face her. I gained you. I gained hope and purpose and a future I want to fight for every single day." He reached into his pocket and Emma's breath caught. "I know it hasn't been a year yet. I know some people would say this is too fast. But I've learned that life is short and precious, and when you find something real, you hold on to it." Julian dropped to one knee, and Biscuit immediately sat beside him, as if he'd been trained for this moment. "Emma Chen, you saved my life in every way a person can be saved. You gave me back my best friend, you loved me through the worst time of my life, you built a future with me when I didn't think I'd have a future. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend whatever time I have left, whether it's 50 years or 100, loving you and building a life with you?" Emma was crying too hard to speak at first. She nodded frantically, then finally managed, "Yes. Yes, absolutely yes." The ring was beautiful, a simple band with 3 stones, a yellow diamond flanked by 2 white ones. "Yellow for Biscuit," Julian explained as he slid it onto her finger. "And 2 for us. All connected, just like we are." People around them had noticed the proposal and broke into applause. Biscuit barked, his tail wagging so hard Emma worried he'd hurt himself again. Julian stood, pulling Emma into his arms, kissing her as the sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I'll love you forever." "Forever sounds perfect," Emma agreed. They were married that summer in a small ceremony at a garden overlooking the Willamette River. Emma wore a simple white dress. Julian wore a suit that finally fit properly again, his weight restored and his health solid. And Biscuit, wearing a bow tie, served as ring bearer with dignity that lasted exactly until he saw a squirrel and nearly derailed the entire ceremony. Sarah from the shelter attended, laughing and crying as she watched Biscuit reunite his family. "Best outcome we've ever had," she told Emma during the reception. "You took a sad situation and turned it into something beautiful." Carmen gave a toast about how Julian had been a workaholic machine until a dog and a woman reminded him what life was actually about. Julian's medical team sent a video message, with Dr. Patel raising a glass to the patient who refused to give up and the partner who wouldn't let him. Emma's parents, who'd flown in from California, welcomed Julian with open arms. "He's a fighter," her father said approvingly. "And he looks at you the way a man should look at his wife." As Emma and Julian danced their first dance as husband and wife, Biscuit watched from the sidelines with Julian's assistant, who'd been tasked with dog-sitting duties for the ceremony. "Think he knows what he did?" Emma asked, resting her head on Julian's shoulder. "I think he knew exactly what he was doing when he dragged me across that coffee shop," Julian said. "Dogs are smarter than we give them credit for. Well, remind me to give him an extra treat tonight. Just 1. Okay, maybe 5. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm after the wedding. Emma ran her clinic, helping dozens of patients weekly regain their strength and mobility. Julian split his time between the foundation and carefully selected projects at Tora's development, having learned the value of balance. They bought a house with a yard for Biscuit and talked about the future with an optimism that once seemed impossible. Julian remained cancer-free through his 6-month checkup, then his 1 year. Each clean scan was cause for celebration, each milestone a gift. But they'd learned not to take any moment for granted. They traveled when Julian felt strong enough, created traditions, invested in their community, and loved each other with an intensity born from nearly losing everything. On the first anniversary of the day they met in the coffee shop, they returned to groundwork with Biscuit. "1 year ago, I spilled coffee all over the floor and thought my life was ending," Julian said, sitting at the same table where Emma had been working that day. "Turns out it was just beginning. 1 year ago, I was trying to save a depressed dog and had no idea I was about to fall in love with his owner, Emma added, accepting the latte Julian bought her. Biscuit sighed contentedly at their feet, completely unaware that he'd changed 3 lives forever. 2 years later, Emma discovered she was pregnant. Julian cried when she told him, placing his hand on her still flat stomach with wonder. "I didn't think I'd live long enough for this," he admitted. "I'd made peace with no children, no family beyond you. This is beyond anything I dreamed possible." "Get used to dreaming bigger," Emma said, kissing him. "We're going to have it all. Love, family, health, happiness, all of it." Their daughter Maya was born on a rainy October morning, screaming her arrival with impressive lung power. Biscuit, now 7 years old, appointed himself her guardian, sleeping beside her crib and gently nosing visitors who got too close. "He's going to be the best big brother," Julian said, watching Biscuit watch Maya with devoted eyes. "Just like he was the best wingman," Emma agreed. When Maya was 6 months old, Julian had his 5-year cancer-free appointment. The scans came back clear, and Dr. Patel officially declared him cured. 5 years cancer-free after aggressive lymphoma is as close to cured as we can call it, she said, smiling broadly. "You beat it, Julian. You can stop waiting for the other shoe to drop." That night, holding his wife and daughter with Biscuit snoring at the foot of the bed, Julian let himself finally believe it. He'd survived. More than survived, he'd built a life richer and fuller than anything he'd known before cancer. "Thank you," he whispered to Emma, who was feeding Maya, "for everything, for Biscuit, for loving me, for this perfect life." Emma looked up, her face soft in the nursery's dim light. "Thank you for not giving up, for fighting, for letting me love you." "Always," Julian promised. "I'll always let you love me, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." "Impossible," Emma said. "Loving you is the best decision I ever made." "Well, that and fostering a certain golden retriever." They looked at Biscuit, who cracked one eye open, thumped his tail once, and went back to sleep. 3 years later, they added another member to the family, a rescue puppy named Muffin, who Biscuit tolerated with patient dignity. Maya, now 3, declared Muffin her best friend, much to Biscuit's apparent relief. The clinic expanded to 3 locations across Portland. The foundation grew to national prominence, helping thousands of cancer patients and funding dozens of healthcare initiatives. Tora's development continued thriving under Julian's less intensive leadership, focusing on projects that benefited communities rather than just generating profit. On their 7th wedding anniversary, Emma and Julian returned to Waterfront Park with both kids, both dogs, and a picnic basket. "7 years since you proposed here," Emma said, watching Maya chase Muffin while Julian held their 1-year-old son, Lucas. "Can you believe how much has changed?" "Sometimes I have to pinch myself," Julian admitted, shifting Lucas to his other hip. "When I think about where I was, how certain I was that my life was over, and then look at this." He gestured at their chaotic, beautiful family. "It doesn't seem real." "It's real," Emma assured him. "We built this. You, me, and 1 matchmaking dog." 2 matchmaking dogs now, apparently, Julian said as Muffin tried to herd Maya back toward them. Emma laughed. "Maybe we should get a 3rd. Let's not push our luck," but their luck held. Julian remained healthy year after year, his cancer a memory that informed their choices but didn't define their lives. Emma's clinic became a model for accessible health care, featured in national publications and replicated in other cities. Their children grew up loved and grounded, aware of their privilege and taught to give back. And Biscuit, who'd started it all, lived to the ripe old age of 14, before passing peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by his family. They buried him in their backyard under a cherry tree with a headstone that read, Biscuit, best friend and matchmaker, you gave us everything." "Do you think he knew?" Emma asked Julian as they stood by the grave, both in tears. "How much he changed our lives?" "I think he knew he was loved," Julian said, wrapping his arm around her. "And that he loved us. That's all that matters." Years continued to pass in a blur of joy and normalcy. Julian's cancer never returned. Emma eventually wrote a book about building accessible healthcare practices that became required reading in physical therapy schools. Their children went to college, fell in love themselves, brought home partners and eventually grandchildren. On their 30th wedding anniversary, Emma and Julian sat on their porch, older and grayer but still deeply in love. They just returned from a party thrown by their kids, and the house was quiet except for the snoring of Muffin, now an elderly dog herself. 30 years, Emma mused. From fostering a dog to this, it's been quite a journey. "Best journey of my life," Julian said, taking her hand. His fingers found the necklace she still wore, the one he'd given her that first Christmas. "Every day with you has been a gift, even the hard days, especially the hard days. They showed me what we're capable of together." Emma leaned against him, comfortable and content. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't run into each other that day? If you'd gone to a different coffee shop, or if I'd stayed home with Biscuit?" "I try not to," Julian admitted. "Because the thought of a life without you is unbearable. I'd rather believe we were meant to find each other. That Biscuit was always meant to bring us together." "I like that version," Emma agreed. "The universe conspired to give us this life." "Or a very smart dog decided his human needed help," Julian countered, making Emma laugh. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the sky in familiar shades of pink and gold. The same colors that had illuminated Julian's proposal, their wedding, countless evenings over 30 years of marriage. "I love you," Emma said, as she had thousands of times before. "I love you too," Julian responded, the words as true and vital as the first time he'd said them. "Thank you for saving me, Emma Chen Torres, in every possible way." "You saved me right back," Emma said. "We saved each other, that's what love does." And as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they remained there together. Two people brought together by chance and a rescue dog, who'd built a lifetime of love from what could have been an ending. Instead, it had been the most beautiful beginning either of them could have imagined, and the life they'd created together was the greatest rescue of all.